be to God.
I get a little carried away sometimes, and this whole topic, this whole piece, these scriptures light me up. It is an incredible gift that we are called to be here with one another, that we are called to be for one another. Now, I have taken to holding off writing any sermon on social justice or anything about these issues until the last minute. Because whenever I get ahead of myself and I have a perfectly good sermon written, something happens. You know those somethings, the ones that you can't just ignore, you have to actually address. And this has been a year marked by videos of violence and shock and outrage and disillusionment. So I waited, because who knows what else might come up. And as I waited, things, of course, continue to shift and change. On July 23rd, I'm on my way into the church. We're going to do a book study. And I pull up to the corner, and I start to get a little annoyed because the guy in front of me is not making the turn. I don't know why he's not making the turn. And then I look across the street, and there is a church burning. My initial annoyance at this man dissipated. We shocked a black church in flames. I was late for the study. When we gathered, myself and the members of Peace Beyond Understanding, as we gathered to study just mercy. And this book study became very, very somber in light of this burning. And if you can make a book study about the death penalty more somber yet, we did that. I went home and I immediately began calling session members. How much hospitality am I authorized to extend to this church? Are you all okay with this? Nothing could have made me prouder of our little church than their willingness to offer our church to one which had just been burned. I reached the pastor. He was on his way back from Houston. You could hear the shock and the dismay in his voice. He said, I don't know. I don't even know what to do. I called him the next day, and he said, I am so overwrought with this. Can we just come and attend your service? Can we just come and say, I can't write a sermon, I can't hardly think. The next day he said, you know what, we're just going to gather at the house. We just need to gather and hold one another and be together. And you could hear that process he was going through, from utter shock and dismay. And please somebody take care of me because I can't function right now. To, it's going to be okay. The church still survives. The building might be burned, but the church still survives. And you can hear him making that progress. I think we all have had this process of identifying with Jeremiah. This, who am I to speak to this? Who am I that I have anything to offer to this? And part of it is, particularly as a white woman coming from Oregon, what do I have to say to this? Just that I will be there, and that God will be with us, and we know that's true. There's fear in trying to bring racial reconciliation to Southeast Jasper. Will we be targeted? Are we putting ourselves in danger? We had begun our racial reconciliation work with a program called Friend to Friend, and it's sort of a stealth reconciliation. Nobody needs to see you do it. It happens behind the scenes. It's all about developing friendships across racial barriers. But it's very stealth. If you want, at any moment, you can simply back off and no one will even know you did it. Our first move into the public eye was this service of lamentation and healing on the eve of June 18th. You cannot hardly believe the grace and the incredible gift that we felt God had given us, that we had this service in order. As we came together, all of us touched and affected in a certain way, speaking about the pain, the loss, and noticing that we were there, black, white, together, in church, caring for each other, supporting one another. It was incredible. It was a gift. Reconciliation was starting to happen. But this piece about directly taking on those who would burn a black church was a little different. I mean, our Ephesians text today tells us to put away falsehood. Let us all speak truth to our neighbors, for we are members of one another. And isn't that the truth? I mean, I met with the pastor of this church and two of his parishioners on the Thursday after, and I could feel the hesitation and the curiosity. I noticed immediately that the pastor really wasn't willing to just come over. He needed to have somebody with him. He didn't want to be there alone. He needed some backup. Why were we willing to help them? What's going on? What do you want from us in exchange? And I told him, we just want to support you. I want you to feel welcome. I pressed a key into the pastor's hand, and he immediately said, somebody else hold this. I don't know that I can accept it. We have a lot of work ahead of us to just simply stay present consistently with one another, to earn trust, and to keep showing up over and over again. But, I do love to make people cry. It's very cathartic. We're called to let our hearts break for one another, to be open, to have compassion, to suffer with. And to be honest, it didn't take much for us to stand with this church. We gained much more than we ever could have given. But still, I waited to write this sermon because, things do keep happening. And you never know. So I waited, and I watched the news, and I watched the reports, articles on police violence and the death of Samuel DuBose, death of Jonathan Sanders, Sandra Bland, and the 4 other women of color who died that month in jail, in custody. And these are just the deaths, and there are only some of them. The Native American deaths are incredibly prevalent, and yet we hardly see them. And this is such an emotionally wearing thing to do. And I'm very new at this. So I turned to my friends and my mentors, some of whom are women of color who've been fighting this good fight for a very long time, and I feel a little guilty. I feel guilty for wearing down so quickly. I haven't developed the emotional calluses to be that present to handle this kind of trauma on a daily basis. Meanwhile, anniversary reminders begin to flood the internet. Has it really been a year since Michael Brown was killed? A year since John Crawford was shot down in a Walmart, and there's still no word on justice. How old would Trayvon Martin be today? And Tamir Rice, how is his family? It's heartbreaking. We know that this is continuing. For us, sometimes it's a blip in the news, and then we move on. But Tamir Rice, his family, it doesn't go away. Like so many, sometimes I just want to turn away and go about my business, plan for worship, lead worship as if everything was okay. Except then here's Jesus giving this sermon and saying, don't do that. Don't just turn away. If your relationship with your brother or your sister is broken, is wounded, is in need of reconciliation, stop where you are and go heal that relationship. Then come back and worship. Then go about life as normal. Because it isn't normal. Not now. Not yet. It is not normal. Not until these wounds are addressed. There's a certain debreeding of the poison that we need to do, and it's hard and it's painful. So this is hard advice, living in a place like Jasper. Living there is to live in a very deeply wounded place. A place where withdrawal is sometimes the easiest thing to do, and you will not see Black Lives Matter sign in Jasper. You will not see marches. It's just too painful, and the fear is too deep. And yet here in the middle of this pain and this woundedness, a small, predominantly white older church dares greatly. It's courageous and does not pull away from things that get too hard. I cannot tell you how much I love these people. A church so determined to participate in this reconciliation that they created peace beyond understanding and sent it off on its way with only one objective: heal the wounds of Southeast Texas. It's a small thing. Just heal those wounds of racism. So like a lot of others, I want to turn away and I can't. And I'm learning to lean into the discomfort because I am so incredibly supported and encouraged. Because in the midst of all this, I keep running into deeply gracious, loving, kind people. And it keeps me going. But still, I waited to write. To consider that what I might tell you about this incredibly prophetic work being done by such a gracious and loving community. So this last Monday, 4 days ago, I returned to work. And the first thing I get is a phone call from a parishioner. Did you hear about the beauty salon, the burn, the new arson fire? I said, no. And I pulled up kjs.com, and there it was. This little bitty beauty salon in flames. So I hop in my truck and I drive by, and I'm driving through this predominantly black neighborhood, very poor, lots of shuttered houses in there, and people are noticing. A white woman driving down the street, because that doesn't happen very often there. This is the part of Jasper I've only been in once before. It's just pretty small. It's a small town, and yet I don't have reason to go there. And they notice. What are you doing here? I drive by this beauty salon, which is newly hollowed out shell in this neighborhood, standing on its little concrete piers. And while the church that was burned was historic and old, this one's small and simple. And the first thought that comes to my mind is, it wouldn't be that hard to rebuild it. It really wouldn't. This piece about staying present to tragedy and abuse, which is so vivid and sadly common, is part of focusing on race relations. When you study the history, when you learn how the powers that be have duped us again and again, co-opting us into being their enforcers, holding our dreams as ransom. Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote about this dream as the lie that poor whites have bought into, have created their identities around. And it is a lie. The idea that if we become wealthy at the expense of one another, that if we have ours, we could be happy, we could be fine, is a lie. Because it's based on a willful blindness, the maintenance of an illusion that we are somehow separate. And what happens to one will not affect the other. And this is a lie. We are members of one another. As the Ubuntu philosophy made popular by Desmond Tutu tells us, I cannot be well, and you cannot be well, unless our brothers and our sisters are well also. We are connected. We are one body. We are members of one another. Healing and wholeness require reconciliation. And it is a lie to suppose that we can be well while members of the body suffer. It is a lie to suppose that we can succeed if our success is built on other people's pain. These are hard truths. And I speak them because I want to disillusion you. Someone once told me that's the strangest thing in the world, that to disillusion people is considered rude and harsh. Because who really wants to live life according to an illusion? But the truth is we like our illusions. We like our dreams. We really want to see race relations as a black problem, as a Latino problem, as an immigrant problem. But the truth is it's a white problem. We are the ones who can choose whether or not to show up. Those who suffer the oppression of systemic racism must endure it as best they can. And perhaps they seek change and become activists, or perhaps they seek cover, but endure it they must. It's those of us who do not have to suffer it that must be encouraged to show up. Because showing up is hard, and to be honest, we have the option not to. That's privilege. Do not go to the temple with your sacrifice and your worship while your relationships remain broken and unreconciled. Just don't do it. But we do. We go about our normal lives as if everything was okay, and mostly we get away with it. We are the bearers of this incredible, great responsibility, and I really want to break that down for you. I don't want you to misunderstand. Because some of us may be guilty. We may have said or done racist things. Anyone who has heard Kelly Osbourne try to apologize, so desperate to make things right, knows it's easy to say something stupid and hurtful. There's that sense that we can all do that, but we must not be afraid. We may have made mistakes. That's okay. We can't not show up now. Because this responsibility It's not the same thing at all. It's the ability to choose how you're going to respond. It's like having a blank check that somebody has given to you, and you get to choose where you're going to spend it. We can take up our privilege and our empowered status, and we can do something good with it. We can change things. We can say things and speak truth to power and not be summarily dismissed. And this is power. This is privilege, and we can use it. We have this incredible ability to choose how and where we will respond. And that is amazing. It is a gift. There are lots of people who do not have this. Some may bear the brunt of racism and they can't choose not to be involved. But for most of us sitting here, we can. And that is responsibility. That is the ability to respond, to choose. It's to be empowered to impact somebody else's life and create change and leave a legacy. But we can also choose not to. The choice rests with us. Later on that Monday morning, I drove by the Burn Beauty Salon again, this time with the president of the board of PBU, Hill Kemp. You know, he said, it wouldn't be that hard to rebuild. We're right there. And crying is cathartic, right? So on his way home, Hill stopped by the home of the people who owned this little beauty shop. And Dennis Austin, this older man, came to the door. He told me later, he said, I had just been on my knees praying because I didn't know what to do. And I came to the door because I was expecting my nieces. And here's this man standing there saying, we want to help you rebuild it. He said, I didn't know what to do. No one has ever offered to help him like that before. He said this over and over again when he came to my office on Wednesday. He'd just come from his dialysis. He was feeling a little weak, but he wanted to stop by. He said, I don't understand. I don't understand why somebody would burn down my little beauty shop. I needed that income. I really did. I live on a fixed income. Both he and his wife are struggling with health problems. The two beauticians who work there, their families are struggling now. Why? He said, why would somebody do that? But more than that, why are you willing to help me? Because that just did not jive with this experience. It's hard sometimes to sit with somebody and say, well, it's about time. Isn't it about time? It's so long overdue that somebody should reach out to you. There should be no plunder here. There's an incredibly beautiful TED Talk out there by a man who has worked in nonprofit industries, food for the hungry industries for years. And he said, I realized after a while it wasn't making any difference. I would help out this family. I'd come back and they'd still just be as poor and as broke. And he said, I couldn't figure it out. And said, one day I was in this poor village and this woman explained it to me. It's very simple. She said, we were doing very, very well until my husband died. When my husband died, my neighbor took my house, took my vegetable garden. He started to call this the locust problem. Because you can work hard and you can earn and you can achieve, and then these locusts will come and just eat it all up. And it's all gone. I could not help but think of this as I was sitting and watching Dennis. As we talked. And he said to me, sorry. There is always a call to action, isn't there? He said to me, when I was younger and I had my health, it seemed so easy. He says, and I have this big house, and sometimes people think I have money because I have this big house, but I can't keep it up. And now my wife is sick, and I have to go into dialysis 3 days a week. He says, it's like it's just gone, and I don't understand. And then these people come by and just burn my house down, burn my beauty salon down. It's a small thing. It is an impoverishment that this should be taken from him. And we will do what we can to make it right. Be reconciled with your brothers. We are all part of the one body. And who are we that we should have a voice? We're the children of God. empowered, gifted, given, filled with abundance. Who are we? We're the ones who have a voice. We're the ones who can speak, who can demand justice. We also have the ability to raise funds. That's going to come in helpful when it comes time to rebuild that. It is a new thing that when somebody finds themselves plundered and they really aren't of account, that someone will say, oh no. Oh no, you don't. That is not okay. We're going to make it right. We're going to stand with you. And I can feel the newness of it when Dennis sits there and says, I don't understand. Why would you do that? You do it anyway. Because we're children of God. Because that's what God calls us to. Reconcile with your brothers. Reconcile with your sisters. Do not let this division grow. Do not let the sun go down on this brokenness. It has gone down for too many years. And it is time. It's not without risk. What I can tell you about this work is that it will change you. It will take you to places you never thought you'd go. And some of that will be painful. There are stories and images in my head that I really wish did not belong there. But if I am going to really look at the history and really understand, I need to know. It's disillusioning. Some of these images, these stories will haunt you. But there are also moments of deep grace when you will have the opportunity to reach out to someone, to change their life, to make things better, to make things right in some small way. Bring hope, bring reconciliation, and it will all be worth it. For just that moment, and really that's all we're given, is just this moment. Right here, right now. For just this moment, we will make things better. For just this moment, and then we will do the next one. And then we will do the next one. We have a path ahead of us. We don't really know where it's going. We have no clue. But we're going to walk it. And we're going to walk it because we believe God goes with us. We believe it is God who's calling us to do this. Reconcile with your brothers and your sisters. Do not allow them to be plundered. Do not stand idly by while their livelihoods are ripped from them. Reconcile, give, breathe, be with one another. It is an incredible and gracious gift. It is a beautiful thing. And as we go forward, all we really have to lose are our illusions. We really don't want them anyway. Not really. The most powerful gift we have is that God loves us and cares for us and holds our hand as we go forward into the world. May it be so.
Amen. Amen.